No buzz. Just Bees Book Club. I'm back on my audiobook bullshit because I read My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones before the second book came out, right around when the first book came out, maybe a little bit before it. My Heart is a Chainsaw is the first book in the Indian Lake trilogy, of course. And it struck me. But since then, book 2 and 3 have been released. And book 3 was released very recently. Just over a week ago as of the time of this recording. And this is, of course, the year of trilogies. As you may have noticed, I've already talked about the end of the Between Earth and Sky trilogy. You've noticed, right, B? Right? Maybe you just don't remember. So I revisited My Heart is a Chainsaw in the audiobook version for the first time. I was very impressed by the reading. By Kara G. Was the reader for the version. I'm use Libro FM, I guess. Whatever. I'm not trying to shout out fucking tech companies. And there's a lot of things. I have a very long note. I don't have the book with me because I didn't read the book because I listened to the audio version, obviously. But here's my notepad. Here's the notes I took. They go all the way past Hello Kitty. This is a notepad I've had for so long. It's a really cute notepad. You can't really see it because it's a little blown out, but it's Hello Kitty holding a little snowman underneath a little sort of idyllic fake town, and on top it says, "A warm and pretty winter of pink." And on the bottom, that's the top left, the bottom right, a big heart, and it's just a Hello Kitty underneath it. Yeah, the first note I have in this indicates this is probably from like 2008 or 9. Yeah, there's an address in here that is from Cambridge and Danvers. There's 100% writing down in the mid 2000s to late 2000s. Anyway, sort of referencing throughout a number of these from the one I didn't do, which is House of Leaves. From the Terra 2, not the Terra 2, the More Perfect and Modernism, a war, a genre, sort of birthday essay I wrote. Anyway, I've been doing too many things for too long. That's the subtext of what I was saying. My Heart is a Chainsaw is so good. I loved it the first time I read it. I read it on the recommendation of a coworker who has also been on this channel talking about various books, including most recently the Joanna Walsh book Vertigo, but also the Sabrina Embler book, whose name I'm forgetting right now, because we both read The Only Good Indians, which rips. Mapping the Interior is also very good. Night of the Mannequin, also very good. That is a exhaustive list of the Stephen Graham Jones books I've read, which is kind of embarrassing, honestly. My Heart is a Chainsaw hit me when I first read it, and now I'm going to talk about the things that hit me this time. First off, the thing that has like stuck with me weirdly throughout the whole thing is I don't remember Jade being so cruel in the first like half of the book. Like I get it. She's a fan of slashers who desperately wants to see other people in her town die to a slasher. But like the way Stephen Graham Jones writes her dialogue, or at least the way that it's read in the audiobook version, it's like, oh, she's she's nasty. Like she's not like, she doesn't feel like somebody who is being planned to be the redemptive force here. And this kind of like cuts into the acknowledgments at the end of this book and the audio version, right? Like, the audiobook ends with Stephen Graham Jones specifically reading out the acknowledgments that are in the end of the book. And he talks about how there's a version of this book that ends with Jade dying that gets hit by some particular editor. I think it's not his, I don't think it's his agent. I think it's a particular editor who he like is shouting out and just being like, yeah, I thought this was going to be it and this is how I was going to end it. And then the trilogy happened, and I think there are artifacts of the version of this book where Jade dies at the end littered sort of excessively throughout the beginning of this book, which I think makes it a better book, honestly. I think her character doesn't work nearly as well if you know she's gonna do what she does at the end, right? She needs to be abrasive, like genuinely, to the reader on some level. And I think she also doesn't need to be that abrasive, because I don't think I had the same reaction to her the first time I read it. But yeah, one of the things on the re-listen that I just did was like, damn, Jade's a just straight up misanthrope. Like, just hates people beyond how it feels to experience the world in a small town where everything is fucked and you've been fucked over. She like wants revenge. She wants unattenuated revenge. She wants just people to die, not the people she's specifically been harmed by. But she wants people to die, and that is not how I remembered her character working. And it made me so much happier on this re-listen to like really focus in on that and be like, oh yeah, she is very clearly traumatized from the beginning of this book, but also she's fucking nasty. Which I deeply appreciate in a character. And I think we appreciate this book more. And then I'm gonna end up reading a big long thing that I wrote, but I think before I get there, just sort of going through stuff like the opening sequence with the Norwegian kids is great. It's just it is pure slasher film goodness, and also works in the literary context. It works in the novel. It's the cold open, and cold opens are not an easy thing to do in a book. because you don't get the thing that allows the cold open to work, right? You don't get the late title and the swell of music. Like, you don't get the theme in a book. And I think I was just re-impressed by how well and fucked up that scene is, but also how it actually structurally informs the narrative, but also how it just doesn't suck. Because I feel like I've read a number of things where they try to do the, is it Casey Becker, the Drew Barrymore bit at the beginning of Scream, and it just sucks because it's like, well, why does that exist? I had that question, but that question got answered. And not in a like deeply structural way, but just in a like way that was satisfying, and I kept moving. And goddamn if Stephen Graham Jones can't at the very baseline nail that, and then also push past it to do something completely different. Letha is so good in My Heart Is a Chainsaw. She is such a compelling, as Jade frequently refers to her, like potential final girl who might also be the killer. Uh, the there's a specific scene that involves a nail gun, and then involves Letha yelling down from the big yacht over on Terra Nova. Did you get them, or did you get them all, or something? It's one of those two that is like, oh fuck, oh fuck, this is that slasher shit. And then the way it pivots is also super perfect. Letha Mondragon's talking to a figure in a gas mask and a hoodie, who's been stalking around with a nail gun. So good. Other just sort of high level things before I get to the big bullshit that I'm about to start spewing. The scene in the elk pile still hits so hard. That is a thing that has been in my brain since I read this book, and it feels like it's been in my brain for a lot longer than that. That is horrifying. That is horrifying. It is horrifying. But it's also so delicately written, which is a part of being horrifying, right? It wouldn't be horrifying if it was like, bah, 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 there's a big pile and I got stuck in it. And it's not perfect, I don't think. There's the way it is sort of foreshadowed really early on and then kind of forgotten about and then all of a sudden brought back up. I think there's probably some finessing that could have been done to make it work a little cleaner or thornier, maybe is what actually I mean. That could have been thornier. Actually, I mean, maybe just drop that initial scene, but also that's important for other things that happen. This book is cool. But that scene specifically is the claustrophobia of it, the wetness of it, the scent of it is so well conveyed, that I think any book that can get me there, I think, is a phenomenal book. Because you don't get there without... You don't get there to that specific image of people in a big pile of dead elk. Without thinking through what is going on and also feeling through it. Because if you just wrote that shit, it would be embarrassing. You have to feel through it and you have to think through it. You're not consciously, right? Like, I don't mean this like sort of like prescriptively in any way. You write how you write, right? I'm not a fucking writing instructor. But like, there is a difference in the experience of reading something where you can tell, maybe, where I can tell sometimes what is not just felt, but what is structurally felt, what has been thought, not I keep fucking talking thought, what has been worked through, what has been pushed into in a way that is beyond the sort of simple explanations of like, that just had to be what happened in the story, or, you know, it just came to me, or I structured my whole shit around this image and built everything around it. It's none of those things. It is, I think, something that is felt. And this is a thought I will go on to develop further in my private life when I'm not speaking into a camera. Not because I'm speaking into a camera, just because I'm gonna need another 6 months to talk through this to myself. The other small note I have is that, and this is another thing that sort of ties back to the acknowledgements, which I think are wonderful. I think they're beautiful in many ways. There are a lot of characters in this novel. You know, Jade and Letha. Sin and Gal and Ginger. A lot of them I maybe have since finished Don't Be the Reaper. Sheriff Hardy, you know, Rexall, Banner Tompkins, oh my god, what is the history teacher? Holmes, or wow, blanking on the history teacher's name. That's brutal. The way that Jade like intercuts chapters with history papers on slashers is also just deeply fun. So much is just fun about this book. There are so many characters in this that are, you know, sketches of people who become bigger as time goes on, or I didn't even name a single one of the founders of Terra Nova. It's the way it's described. I think on one of the things I read is like, this is a novel about like a small town that is getting rapidly gentrified. I think that might be literally on the like back of My Heart is a Chainsaw, and like, I don't know that gentrification is the right way of this. I don't think gentrification is the right frame there. But anyway, there are so many characters, Mars Baker, um, Theo Mondrian, that are either delicately sketched, meaning, you know, three fucking pen strokes, the character is there. This is Stephen Graham Jones's like influence from Stephen King, I think, that he wears the best. There's one character who is Jade's father, Tab Daniels, who is extremely central to the text and who I think doesn't work for me. He is a drunk who thinks of himself as sort of perpetually in high school when he peaked in his life. He's abusive and deeply shitty, and there's a thing in the acknowledgments also about this, about where this story sort of came from. The sort of newspaper article that Stephen Graham Jones read that inspired this book, that indicate that Tab is sort of the central character. And the acknowledgments go into the fact that this book had been written years and years before, and it was written with the first person plural as sort of the central conceit, and that it was sort of narrated by a boy in an iron mask or a mask of some sort, that Stephen Graham Jones talks about as like essentially me, and then revisions and trunking and forgetting about it and coming back to it. But the way he describes, as I recall, him coming back to it is like reading this particular article about a man who is sort of transmuted into Tab ultimately in the book. I don't think he ever wraps his whole head around Tab as a person, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it works effectively, that Tab does not get sort of any sort of maudlin interiority to him, but also I unfortunately think of the way that Jack Torrance works as an alcoholic in The Shining, the Stephen King one, and I wish there was more of that in here. Not the clumsy sort of almost filmic moments of Torrance in The Shining where he, whatever, he's like constantly rubbing his thumb against his lower lip or biting his thumb or something like that. There's this very overwrought tick that he has in the book, but there's so many other small moments of addiction that are conveyed through his character that I don't think Tab ever gets in this one, which is like important to me as a person who grew up among alcoholics, but also not like a condemnation in any way. It was just this moment of being like, God, this book is firing on so many cylinders, and I wish it was firing on this one as well. Okay. I think I've gotten all my things out. Speaking of alcohol. I'm going to read a thing, and then I'll decide if I want to continue talking about it after I read it, or if I'm just going to be done. And you'll know if I'm just going to be done. Because you know how I end these. Right, B? My Heart is a Chainsaw is the first real successor to Scream that I can think of. The TV show was good, but it was a different thing. The first 2 seasons specifically, the reboot 3rd season, I really wanted to be something, but meaning, if Scream is Wes Craven's negating the negation, Nightmare on Elm Street. No, Nightmare on Elm Street? Nightmare on Elm Street is the negation of previous slasher film psychologism by moving the individuated psychosis of Bates, Myers, Lewis, etc., to the collective unconscious, the guilt of the parent and the medium of dreams. This being negated in Scream, this meaning Nightmare on Elm Street being negated in Scream, by returning to a realism marked by the movement through this anti-individualist turn, the rules of horror, etc., then My Heart is a Chainsaw is the first thing I've read that genuinely negates Scream's negation, pushing through the realism of Scream with Stacey Graves while maintaining the material aspects. That's how I write notes. Hit me up. Thanks for not watching.